The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices from 100 different worlds. Tall reptilian creatures with sharp teeth talked to floating crystal beings that glowed with inner light. Insect-like aliens with 4 arms moved around. Tables where gas clouds in metal suits discussed important matters. Ambassador Kyle Harrison walked into the center of the room. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and kind eyes, but today those eyes showed determination. All the alien voices grew quiet as he reached the speaking platform. "The people of Earth wish to join the Great Reclamation," Kyle said clearly. His voice carried across the massive room through translation devices that turned his words into sounds each species could understand. A deep, rumbling laugh came from the Vorthak section. Admiral Kexthul stood up on his powerful legs. He was nearly 10 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes that seemed to glow. "The humans want to claim Kepler 442b? His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "That death world has killed 17 expeditions. What makes you soft mammals think you can succeed where others have failed?" More laughter filled the room. The Zephyrian High Collective sent out waves of amused crystal chimes. Elder Thexazara's voice rang like breaking glass. "We find this charming. Tell us, small human, how many ships will your species send? How many thousands of warriors?" Kyle stood straight and proud. "We will send 1 ship with 200 people." The laughter stopped. For a moment, the great hall was completely silent. Then the noise exploded like a bomb. Alien voices rose in shock, amusement, and disbelief. 1 ship? Admiral Kexthul's eyes widened. "We are sending 50 warships with 20,000 soldiers. The Zephyrians have 7 arc ships carrying 50,000 colonists. And you send 1 tiny vessel?" "That is correct," Kyle replied calmly. "The UES Horizon will represent humanity in this mission." Elder Thexazara's crystal form sparkled with what humans had learned was laughter. "Perhaps your species does not understand the danger. Kepler 442b has storms that can tear apart starships. The air is poison. The ground melts metal. The weather changes without warning and can kill thousands in minutes." Kyle nodded. "We have read all the reports. We understand the risks." "Then you understand you are choosing death," said another voice. This came from Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony, a species that looked like walking trees with silver bark. "No single ship can survive what that world will throw at it. The smart choice is to withdraw your request and let the real powers handle this mission." Other aliens began to speak up. A floating jellyfish-like creature from the deep current spoke in bubbling sounds. The translation came out as, "The humans have always been strange, but this is beyond strange. This is madness." Kyle waited for the voices to die down. When the room was quiet again, he spoke. "We appreciate your concern, but humanity has made its decision. Captain Lisa Morgan and her crew are ready to depart whenever the mission begins." Admiral Kexthul slammed his clawed hand on the table in front of him. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. "This is not concern, little human, this is reality. Your people will die within days of reaching that cursed world. We will watch your ship break apart in the storms, and then we will have to explain to your homeworld why we let you throw away 200 lives." "The Vorthak are right," agreed Elder Thexazara. "We cannot allow such waste. Perhaps humans should observe this mission from a safe distance, learn from species with proper experience." Kyle felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his voice level. "With respect, honored beings, humanity did not ask for permission. We asked to participate. The Galactic Treaty clearly states that any member species may attempt colonization of unclaimed worlds." A new voice spoke from the back of the room. It belonged to Chancellor Morden of the Trade Federation, a species that looked like upright bears with blue fur. "The human is technically correct about the treaty, but perhaps we should consider an exception. Sending 1 ship to Kepler 442b is not brave. It is suicide." The room filled with agreement. Voices in dozens of languages all said the same thing. The humans were making a terrible mistake. Kyle looked around the great hall at all the alien faces. Some showed what he thought was genuine worry. Others seemed amused by human foolishness. A few looked annoyed that their time was being wasted. "I understand your position," Kyle said. "But let me tell you something about humans. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We do not have the best technology or the most powerful weapons. What we do have is something that has kept us alive for millions of years on a world that tried to kill us every single day." "And what is that?" asked Elder Thexazara, her crystal form dimming with curiosity. "We adapt," Kyle said simply. "We learn, we survive, and we never give up." Admiral Kexthal made a sound that was probably laughter. "Adapt? To Kepler 442b. The storms there can strip the flesh from bones in seconds. The air will burn your lungs. The ground is so unstable that our heaviest equipment sinks into it like water. What adaptation could possibly help with that?" Kyle smiled for the first time since entering the hall. "We will find out." The meeting continued for 2 more hours. Different species took turns explaining why the human mission was doomed. They talked about their own failures on Kepler 442b. The Altarians had lost 3 ships to electrical storms. The Corvan Empire had watched their most advanced robots break down in the toxic atmosphere. Even the mighty Titans of Proxima had retreated after losing half their colonists to sudden weather changes. But Kyle Harrison stood firm. When the final vote was called, humanity's right to attempt the mission was confirmed by the narrowest possible margin. Many species voted against them, not out of meanness, but because they truly believed they were watching 200 humans choose death. As Kyle left the Great Hall, he heard the whispers following him. In a dozen languages, aliens spoke of human stubbornness, human pride, and human foolishness. Some called it the most expensive suicide in galactic history. Back on his ship, Kyle sent a message to Earth. "Mission approved. Captain Morgan, you are cleared to depart." 3 days later, the UES Horizon left Earth orbit. It was a simple ship compared to the massive vessels other species were sending. No heavy armor, no huge weapons, no thousands of colonists in cold sleep. Just 200 humans and their unshakable belief that they could succeed where others had failed. The galaxy watched and waited for the inevitable disaster. 3 massive fleets left their home systems within days of each other, all heading toward the same destination. Kepler 442b waited for them like a hungry beast, ready to devour another group of hopeful colonists. The Vorthak Armada moved through space like a school of metal sharks. 50 warships flew in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons and armor. Admiral Kexthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars drift past. His yellow eyes glowed with confidence. "How long until we reach the target world?" he asked his navigation officer. 17 standard days at maximum speed, Admiral," came the reply. Kexthal nodded. "Good. We will arrive first and establish dominance. The other species will see how real warriors handle a hostile world." Far behind them, the Zephyrian Ark ships moved in graceful spirals through the void. 7 massive vessels that looked like flying cathedrals made of crystal and light. Each one carried thousands of colonists in comfortable living spaces. Elder Thexazara floated in the command chamber of the lead ship, her crystal form pulsing with soft blue light. "The Vorthak rush ahead like beasts," she said to her fellow elders. "They think brute force will tame Kepler 442b. We know better. Our advanced technology and careful planning will succeed where their violence fails." But there was a third ship in the race, one that both fleets had almost forgotten about. The UES Horizon took a completely different path through space. While the aliens rushed straight toward their target, Captain Lisa Morgan had her crew plot a much longer route. "Art, you sure about this course, Captain?" asked Navigation Officer Steve Collins. He was a young man with red hair and freckles studying the star charts on his screen. "We could reach Kepler 442b in 20 days if we flew direct. This route will take us 43 days. Captain Morgan stood behind him, looking at the same charts. She was a woman in her 40s with steel gray hair and calm eyes that missed nothing. "I am sure, Steve. Show me the gravitational assists again." Steve pointed to different stars on the map. "We swing past this red giant here, use its gravity to boost our speed." Then we curve around this binary system to pick up more velocity. Finally, we use the gas giant in the Kepler system itself to slow down and enter orbit with plenty of fuel left over. Exactly, Morgan said. While the other fleets burn through their fuel racing to get there first, we arrive with full tanks and time to study the situation. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez worked with his team to make sure every system on the ship ran perfectly. Danny was a short, stocky man with oil-stained hands and a mind that understood machines better than most people understood themselves. "Captain wants us ready for anything," he told his assistant. "This ship might not look like much compared to those alien vessels, but every bolt and wire on her is designed to be fixed, modified, or replaced. We can adapt to whatever that planet throws at us." Dr. Patricia Wells spent her time in the medical bay, but she was not just preparing for injuries. She was studying everything the previous expeditions had learned about Kepler 442b. Patricia was a tall woman with dark skin and intelligent eyes who had studied both medicine and biology. "The planet is not just dangerous," she explained to her team. "It is actively hostile to life as we know it. But life finds a way to exist even in the worst conditions. If we can understand how the native organisms survive, maybe we can learn to survive too." Communications Officer Jake Turner sat at his station, listening to radio transmissions from across the galaxy. Jake was young and eager, with blonde hair and blue eyes that sparkled when he discovered something interesting. "Captain," he called out, "I am picking up transmissions from the Vorthak fleet. They are already fighting among themselves about who gets the best landing sites." Morgan smiled grimly. "What about the Zephyrians?" "They are broadcasting cultural programs to their colonists. Music and poetry to keep morale up during the journey." "And what are we broadcasting, Jake?" Jake grinned. "Nothing, Captain. We are listening and learning." While the alien fleets raced toward Kepler 442b, the humans took their time. Every day brought new information. Every night brought new plans. The crew studied the failures of the 17 previous expeditions, looking for patterns and mistakes. Biologist Emma Price worked with Dr. Wells to understand the planet's ecosystem. Emma was a small woman with brown hair who had spent years studying life in extreme environments on Earth. "Look at this," Emma said, pointing to data on her screen. "Every expedition tried to bring Earth-based life to Kepler 442b. Plants, animals, bacteria. All of them died within weeks. But the native life thrives," Patricia added. "Maybe we are thinking about this wrong. Instead of trying to make Earth life work on Kepler 442b, what if we tried to make Kepler 442b life work for us?" The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the bridge. Jake Turner's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All hands. This is communications. We are receiving emergency transmissions from the Vorthak fleet." Captain Morgan rushed to the bridge. "What is happening, Jake?" "The Vorthak reached Kepler 442b 3 days ago," Jake replied, his face pale. "They tried to establish orbital control by bombing the storm systems. It backfired. The electromagnetic storms are now twice as strong as before. They have lost 12 ships." The bridge fell silent. 12 ships meant thousands of Vorthak soldiers were dead. "Any word from the survivors?" Morgan asked. "Admiral Kexathul is ordering a retreat to safe distance. They are calling for reinforcements from their home system." 2 days later, more bad news arrived. The Zephyrian Arc ships had reached Kepler 442b and attempted to use their advanced shielding technology to create safe zones on the planet's surface. Their crystal structures, so beautiful in space, proved vulnerable to the planet's acidic atmosphere. The shields failed within hours. 2 of their 7 ships are gone, Jake reported. Elder Thexazara is requesting immediate evacuation assistance. Throughout the galaxy, news networks picked up the story. The same alien species that had mocked humanity's single-ship mission now spoke of it as inevitable disaster. "The Vorthak War fleet has been crushed," announced one reporter. "The Zephyrian Arc ships have been dissolved by acid storms. What hope does one small human vessel have against a world that destroys everything it touches?" Another reporter added, "Military experts estimate that the human ship will last less than 6 hours after reaching Kepler 442b. This may be the shortest colonization attempt in galactic history. But aboard the UES Horizon, the crew continued their careful preparations. They had studied every transmission from the failed expeditions. They had analyzed every mistake, every wrong decision, every moment where pride had overcome wisdom. Vorthak tried to fight the planet, Captain Morgan told her crew during their daily briefing. The Zephyrians tried to ignore it with technology. Both approaches failed. "So what do we do, Captain?" asked Security Chief Nina Brooks. She was a strong woman with short black hair and serious eyes. Morgan looked around at the faces of her crew. These men and women had volunteered for a mission that the entire galaxy expected to fail. They trusted her to find a way to succeed where others had died. "We do what humans have always done," she said simply. "We adapt. We learn. We survive. And we prove that sometimes the smallest ship carries the biggest ideas." Outside the ship's windows, the stars continued their ancient dance. Somewhere ahead lay Kepler 442b, waiting for the next group of victims. But the humans were coming with something the other species had not brought. They were coming with patience, wisdom, and the unshakable human belief that there was always another way. The UES Horizon drifted silently in orbit around Kepler 442b. Through the ship's windows, the crew could see the planet that had destroyed so many others. It looked like a giant marble painted with angry colors. Red storms swirled across brown continents while purple lightning danced between thick clouds. Captain Morgan stood in the observation deck with her senior officers. They had been watching the planet for 3 weeks now, something no other species had bothered to do. The Vorthak had attacked immediately. The Zephyrians had tried to land within hours of arrival, but the humans simply observed and learned. "Tell me what we have discovered, Alan," Morgan said to her chief science officer. Alan Foster was a thin man with thick glasses and a mind that loved solving puzzles. He held a tablet filled with 3 weeks of careful observations. "The storms follow patterns, Captain. They are not random like everyone thought. Every 6 days, the electromagnetic storms move from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. For exactly 14 hours, there is a calm zone around the equator." "And the acid rain?" asked Dr. Patricia Wells. "It comes after the electromagnetic storms pass," Alan replied. "The storms create chemical reactions in the atmosphere. The acid rain falls for about 10 hours, then stops." Emma Price, the ship's biologist, stepped forward. She was excited about something. "Captain, we have found life forms that survive, both the storms and the acid rain. Tiny organisms that actually use the electricity and acid as food sources." Morgan nodded slowly. "Show me." Emma activated a wall screen that displayed microscopic images. These microorganisms live in the soil and in shallow pools of water. During storms, they absorb electrical energy. During acid rain, they process the chemicals and grow stronger. They have learned to work with the planet instead of fighting it. Dr. Wells leaned forward to study the images. "Emma, are you thinking what I think you are thinking?" "Yes," Emma said with a smile. "What if we could do the same thing? What if we could modify human biology to work with this planet instead of against it?" The room fell silent. Security Chief Nina Brooks was the first to speak. "You want to change our bodies? Make us into something that can survive down there?" "Not permanently," Dr. Wells said quickly. "Temporary modifications. We have the technology to alter human biology for short periods. We could adapt our lungs to process the toxic atmosphere, strengthen our skin against acid rain, even help our nervous systems handle electrical storms." Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez whistled softly. "That is either brilliant or completely insane." "Maybe both," admitted Dr. Wells. "But it might be our only chance. Every other species has tried to bring their own environment to Kepler 442b. They build sealed habitats, atmospheric processors, protective shields. All of those failed because they fought against the planet." Captain Morgan walked to the window and stared down at the swirling storms below. "What about our equipment, our tools, and machines?" "We build differently," Danny said. "Instead of trying to protect everything from the environment, we design things that can work with it. Flexible structures that bend instead of break. materials that get stronger when exposed to acid, electronics that use the planet's electrical storms as power sources. Landing specialist Greg Martinez had been quiet during the discussion. He was a man who had landed on dozens of different worlds, but never one like this. Captain, if we are going to try this, we need to pick our landing site very carefully, and we need to time everything perfectly. What do you recommend, Greg? Morgan asked. Greg activated another screen showing the planet's surface. There is a valley near the equator that has natural rock formations. They could provide shelter during the worst storms. There are also underground caves that connect to water sources. If we land during the calm period, we would have 14 hours to establish a basic shelter before the next storm hits. Alan. Foster checked his calculations. The next calm period starts in 4 days. After that, we wait another 6 days for the next opportunity. Captain Morgan looked around at her crew. These people had volunteered for a mission that everyone expected to fail. Now she was asking them to do something even more dangerous than anyone had imagined. She was asking them to change their very biology and trust their lives to untested theories. I need to know right now, she said firmly. Are we all committed to this plan? Because once we start the biological modifications, there is no going back. We succeed together, or we fail together. One by one, each officer nodded. Doctor, Wells would begin the modification process immediately. Danny would redesign their equipment to work with the planet's conditions. Greg would finalize the landing preparations. Alan would continue monitoring the storms to ensure their timing was perfect. As word spread through the ship, every crew member volunteered for the biological modifications. No one wanted to stay safely in orbit while their friends risked everything on the surface. While the crew prepared, Captain Morgan recorded a message to send back to Earth and to the Galactic Council. She knew the galaxy was watching, waiting for news of humanity's inevitable failure. This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the UES Horizon, she said into the camera. We have spent 3 weeks studying Kepler 442b, and we believe we have found a way to succeed where others have failed. We are not going to fight this planet, we are going to join it. She paused, knowing how her next words would sound to alien ears. In 2 days, we will begin biological modifications to help our crew survive. In Kepler 442b's environment, we will land during the planet's natural calm period and establish our colony using methods that work with the planet's ecosystem rather than against it. The message was transmitted across the galaxy within hours. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every major news network picked up the story. Scientists from dozens of species called the plan impossible. Military leaders declared it suicide. Admiral Kexthal, still licking his wounds from his failed assault on the planet, sent a personal message to Captain Morgan. Human Captain, you are making a terrible mistake. That world cannot be tamed by changing yourselves. It must be conquered through superior force. Retreat now before you lose everything. Elder Thexazara of the Zephyrians was more diplomatic, but equally negative. Captain Morgan, your species has always been known for creativity, but this plan goes beyond creativity into fantasy. Biological modification is dangerous even under the best conditions. Attempting it while landing on a death world is beyond foolish. Even some human scientists back on Earth expressed serious doubts. Dr. Richard Stone, head of the Colonial Research Institute, sent a concerned message. Lisa, I understand the pressure you are under, but please reconsider this biological modification plan. We have no idea what long-term effects it might have on your crew. But Captain Morgan had made her decision. As she walked through the ship, she saw her crew preparing for something that had never been attempted before. Dr. Wells worked around the clock in the medical bay, preparing the modification procedures. Danny Rodriguez and his engineering team redesigned every piece of equipment they would need on the surface. Communications Officer Jake Turner monitored transmissions from across the galaxy. Captain, he reported, the betting pools on 12 different worlds are giving us odds of 10,000 to 1 against survival. Morgan smiled grimly. What are they betting on, Jake? Most bets are on how long we last after landing. The most Optimistic guess is 3 days, the shortest is 4 hours. Well, Morgan said, I guess we will have to prove them wrong. 2 days later, Dr. Wells began the biological modification process. One by one, crew members entered the medical bay and emerged changed. Their lungs could now process Kepler 442b's toxic atmosphere. Their skin could resist acid rain. Their nervous systems could handle electrical storms that would kill unmodified humans. As the modifications took effect, the crew began to feel different. They could sense the planet below them in ways they had never experienced before. Emma Price described it as feeling the planet's heartbeat. The galaxy watched and waited. In gambling halls across 100 worlds, aliens placed bets on human failure. On news networks, experts explained why the human plan was doomed to disaster. But, aboard the UES Horizon, 200 modified humans prepared to attempt something that no species had ever tried before. They were going to land on the most dangerous world in the galaxy, not as conquerors or refugees, but as partners in an ancient dance of adaptation and survival. The countdown to landing had begun. The UES Horizon shook as it entered Kepler 442b's atmosphere. Captain Morgan gripped her chair as the ship pushed through layers of toxic clouds that had destroyed so many vessels before them. But this time was different. This time, humans were not fighting the planet. Hull temperature is rising but staying within acceptable limits, reported Danny Rodriguez from the engineering station. The new heat-resistant coating is working perfectly. Atmospheric pressure is stabilizing, added Alan Foster. We are hitting the calm zone right on schedule. Through the bridge windows, the crew could see the planet's surface for the first time without the chaos of storms. Rolling hills covered in strange purple vegetation stretched toward distant mountains. Rivers of silver liquid wound between rock, formations that glowed with soft blue light. It is actually beautiful, whispered Communications Officer Jake Turner. Beautiful and deadly, Captain Morgan reminded him. We have 14 hours before the next storm cycle begins. Everyone knows their jobs. Let us make every minute count. The ship touched down in the valley that Greg Martinez had selected. As soon as the landing thrusters shut off, the crew began moving with practiced efficiency. They had rehearsed this landing hundreds of times during their journey. Greg led the first team outside. As he stepped onto the planet's surface, he felt his modified lungs automatically adjust to the toxic atmosphere. The air tasted metallic and sharp, but his body processed it without difficulty. Breathing is strange but manageable, he reported through his communicator. The biological modifications are working. Behind him, other crew members emerged from the ship. Each person felt the same odd sensation as their modified bodies adapted to the alien environment. Dr. Patricia Wells had done her work well. The crew could survive in conditions that would have killed them within minutes just days earlier. Teams Alpha and Beta, start setting up the emergency shelters, Captain Morgan ordered. Team Gamma, begin collecting samples of local materials. Team Delta, scout the cave systems. We need to be underground before the storms return. Danny Rodriguez supervised the unloading of equipment. Everything had been redesigned based on their observations of the planet. Instead of heavy, rigid structures, they brought flexible materials that could bend with the planet's violent weather. Instead of trying to seal out the toxic atmosphere, their equipment was designed to work with it. These shelter panels are amazing, said one of the engineers. They actually get stronger when exposed to the acid in the air. Dr. Wells and Emma Price worked together to study the local microorganisms. They collected samples of soil, water, and the strange purple plants that covered the landscape. Look at this, Emma said excitedly. These plants do not just survive the electrical storms. They use the electricity to grow faster. Their root systems are like natural lightning rods. Can we use them? Asked Dr. Wells. I think so. If we plant these around our colony, they might help protect us from the worst electrical discharges. Meanwhile, Security Chief Nina Brooks led a team to explore the cave system that would become their primary shelter. The caves were larger than they had hoped, with multiple chambers connected by natural tunnels. This could work, she reported to Captain Morgan. The caves go deep into the rock. Even if the storms get worse than predicted, we should be safe down here. As the hours passed, The human colony began to take shape. It looked nothing like the grand structures that other species had attempted to build. Instead of fighting the planet's conditions, every element of the human settlement worked with them. The shelters were built low to the ground and covered with local materials that would help them blend into the environment. The electrical systems were designed to draw power from the planet's lightning storms. The water collection systems used the acid rain as a source of both water and useful chemicals. 6 hours until the next storm, Alan Foster announced. All teams should be moving to the caves. As the crew retreated underground, they carried with them samples of everything they had collected. The caves became laboratories, workshops, and living spaces all at once. When the electromagnetic storm began, the humans felt it differently than any other species had. Their modified nervous systems could actually sense the electrical activity in the air. Instead of being terrified by the planet's power, they began to understand it. The storm is not random, Emma reported from her makeshift laboratory. It follows patterns. The electrical discharges happen in waves like a heartbeat, and the microorganisms respond to each wave, added Dr. Wells. They feed on the electricity and then release nutrients into the soil. The whole planet is like one giant living system. During the 3-day storm, the crew worked continuously. They could not go outside, but they could study, plan, and prepare. They learned to read the planet's rhythms through the vibrations in the cave walls and the changes in the air. On the 4th day, the storm passed and the acid rain began. The crew emerged from the caves to find their settlement had survived perfectly. The flexible structures had bent with the wind but not broken. The protective plants had absorbed most of the electrical damage. The shelter panels are actually brighter now, observed Danny Rodriguez. The acid rain cleaned them and somehow made them more efficient. Over the following weeks, the human colony continued to grow. Each storm cycle taught them something new. Each calm period allowed them to expand and improve their settlement. The breakthrough came when Dr. Wells successfully modified some Earth seeds to grow in Kepler 442b's soil. The plants were strange hybrids that could survive both the electrical storms and the acid rain. But they produced food that humans could eat. We are not just surviving, Dr. Wells announced during a colony meeting. We are beginning to thrive. The crew established farms in the valleys between the caves. They built workshops that used the planet's electrical storms as power sources. They even created a communication center that could send messages to Earth during the calm periods. But perhaps the most important discovery came from Emma Price. She found that the longer the crew stayed on Kepler 442b, the better their bodies adapted to the environment. The biological modifications were becoming permanent, but in a good way. We are evolving, she explained to Captain Morgan. Not into something inhuman, but into humans who can live anywhere. Our bodies are learning to work with this planet instead of against it. Meanwhile, long-range sensors detected something amazing. The areas around the human colony were becoming more stable. The storms were less violent near their settlement. The acid rain was weaker. Even the toxic atmosphere was slowly becoming cleaner. It is like the planet is responding to our presence, Alan Foster said in wonder. By working with its natural systems instead of fighting them, we are actually helping to heal some of the damage from previous colonization attempts. 6 months after landing, the colony had grown from 200 people to over 300 as new volunteers arrived from Earth. But more importantly, they had achieved something no other species had managed. They had not just survived on Kepler 442b, they had found a way to live in harmony with the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. Captain Morgan stood in the central plaza of their growing settlement, watching colonists work alongside the planet's natural systems. Children played in gardens, where Earth plants grew next to alien ones. Scientists studied creatures that had learned to trust the strange humans who did not try to destroy their world. In the distance, another electromagnetic storm was building, but the colonists no longer feared these storms. They had learned to dance with them, to use their power, and to find beauty in their wild energy. The galaxy had expected the humans to die within hours of landing. Instead, they had created something unprecedented, a colony that made both humans and the planet stronger. The real test, however, was yet to come. Soon, The galaxy would have to acknowledge that the species they had mocked had achieved the impossible, and that acknowledgement would change everything. 1 year after the UES Horizon had landed on Kepler 442b, Captain Lisa Morgan stood in the center of New Haven, the first permanent city built on the planet that had killed so many others. Around her, children played in parks where earth flowers grew beside alien plants that glowed with soft purple light. The city hummed with activity as colonists worked in harmony with the planet's natural rhythms. The transformation was remarkable. What had started as 200 desperate humans hiding in caves had become a thriving community of over 800 people. New ships arrived from Earth every month, bringing volunteers who wanted to be part of humanity's greatest colonization success. "Captain, we have an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council," announced Communications Officer Jake Turner. He was calling from the Communication Center, a building that used the planet's electrical storms to boost signal strength across the galaxy. Morgan walked to the center, passing through streets where humans worked alongside the planet's native creatures. The small furry animals that had once hidden from alien invaders now helped colonists tend gardens and predict weather changes. In the communication center, Jake had set up the main viewing screen. The familiar sight of the Galactic Council chambers appeared, but this time the atmosphere was very different from a year ago. Elder Thexazara of the Zephyrians spoke first. Her crystal form pulsed with what humans had learned was embarrassment. "Captain Morgan, the Zephyrian High Collective wishes to formally apologize for our earlier statements about human capabilities. We were wrong to doubt your species." Admiral Kexathul of the Vorthak stood next to her, his massive frame somehow seeming smaller than before. "The Vorthak Empire also offers apologies. We said your single ship would fail within days. Instead, you have achieved what our greatest fleets could not. We request permission to study your methods." Captain Morgan smiled calmly. "The apologies are accepted, honored beings. But I think you misunderstand something important. We did not succeed because we are stronger or smarter than your species. We succeeded because we tried a different approach." "What do you mean?" asked Chancellor Morden of the Trade Federation. "Every expedition before ours tried to conquer Kepler 442b, Morgan explained. You brought massive fleets, powerful weapons, and advanced technology. You tried to force the Yi planet to accept your presence, but Kepler 442b does not respond well to force." She gestured to the window where the view showed New Haven's peaceful streets. "We succeeded because we chose to join the planet instead of fighting it. We adapted ourselves to work with its natural systems. We learned from its native life forms. We became partners with the world instead of invaders." Ambassador Kyle Harrison appeared on another part of the screen, speaking from Earth. "The Galactic Council has asked me to make a formal announcement. After careful consideration and observation of the New Haven colony's success, Kepler 442b is hereby declared sovereign territory of the human species." A murmur of voices filled the council chambers. This was the first time in galactic history that a single-ship mission had been granted full planetary rights. "Furthermore," Kyle continued, "the Council wishes to establish a cultural and scientific exchange program with the New Haven colony. Several species have requested permission to send observers to learn from human colonization techniques." Morgan nodded. "We welcome peaceful visitors who come to learn and share knowledge, but anyone who comes to Kepler 442b must understand our rules. This planet is not to be conquered or exploited. It is to be respected and protected." Over the following months, representatives from dozens of species arrived at New Haven. They came expecting to find humans living in sealed domes and underground bunkers, fighting for survival against a hostile world. Instead, they found something that challenged everything they thought they knew about colonization. Dr. Patricia Wells led tours for visiting scientists. She showed them humans swimming in the planet's silver rivers, their modified bodies processing the unusual minerals. She demonstrated how human children could play safely during electrical storms, their adapted nervous systems making them immune to the dangerous discharges. "This is impossible," said Dr. Zexnall, a hegemony scientist who studied extreme environments. "Humans should not be able to survive in this atmosphere, let alone thrive in it." "It is not impossible," Dr. Wells replied patiently. "It just requires A different way of thinking. Instead of bringing Earth to Kepler 442b, we brought ourselves to Kepler 442b. The visiting aliens were especially amazed by the human agriculture systems. Botanist Rachel Green showed them farms where Earth crops grew in soil enriched by the planet's native microorganisms. The plants were healthier and more productive than anything grown in purely Earth-based soil. The secret is cooperation, Rachel explained to a group of Altarian agricultural experts. We do not try to replace the planet's ecosystem. We add to it. Our plants help the native organisms, and the native organisms help our plants. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez demonstrated the colony's power systems to visiting technical experts. They watched in amazement as the city's electrical grid drew energy directly from the planet's storm systems. Your people have turned the planet's greatest weapon into your greatest tool, observed Engineer Talmor of the Corvan Empire. This is beyond impressive. This is revolutionary. It is just practical, Danny replied with a grin. Why fight lightning when you can use it to power your cities? But perhaps the most impressed visitors were the military observers. Security Chief Nina Brooks showed them how the colony defended itself not with weapons and walls, but by working with the planet's natural defenses. During the last attempted pirate raid, she explained to Admiral Kexthul during his visit, we did not fire a single shot. We simply waited for the next electrical storm and guided it toward the attackers' ships. The planet itself drove them away. Kexthul shook his massive head in wonder. You have made the entire world your ally. No conventional military force could attack you successfully. The cultural impact of New Haven's success spread throughout the galaxy. University courses were created to study human adaptation techniques. The phrase, thinking like a human, became galactic slang for finding creative solutions to impossible problems. More importantly, other human colony ships began using New Haven's methods on different worlds. Planets that had been considered uninhabitable were suddenly becoming home to human settlements. Each colony adapted the basic principles to their specific environment, but the core idea remained the same. Work with the world, not against it. Captain Morgan received requests from hundreds of worlds asking for human assistance with their own colonization projects. Some offered vast sums of money. Others offered technology exchanges. A few even offered political alliances. The galaxy that mocked us a year ago now wants to hire us, she told her senior staff during their weekly meeting. Are we going to accept any of these offers? Asked Dr. Wells. Morgan looked out the window at New Haven's thriving streets. Human families walked beside alien visitors, all of them safe under Kepler 442b's stormy but protective sky. We will share our knowledge freely with anyone who asks, she decided. But we will not take payment for it. What we have learned here belongs to all species who are willing to learn. The final recognition came during the next Galactic Council meeting. Ambassador Kyle Harrison stood before the same assembly that had mocked humanity's single-ship mission just 18 months earlier. The human approach to colonization has proven that cooperation and adaptation are more powerful than force and technology, he announced. We are honored to share these lessons with any species that wishes to learn. Elder Thexazara spoke for the entire assembly. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that cannot be repaid. You have shown us a better way to explore and settle new worlds. You have proven that the smallest ship can carry the biggest ideas. That night, as Captain Morgan walked through New Haven's peaceful streets, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The galaxy had mocked when humans sent a single ship to Kepler 442b. They had expected to witness a spectacular failure, a cautionary tale about human arrogance. Instead, they had witnessed something far more important. Proof that intelligence and adaptability could overcome any obstacle. The humans had not conquered Kepler 442b. They had joined it. And in doing so, they had changed not just their own destiny, but the destiny of every species in the galaxy. Above them, Kepler 442b's electrical storms danced across the sky in patterns that now seemed like celebration. The planet that had once been a graveyard for failed expeditions had become a beacon of hope for successful ones. The galaxy would never mock humanity again. Instead, they would learn from them, follow their example, and discover that sometimes the greatest victories come not from fighting harder, but from thinking differently. The single ship had landed. The galaxy had been changed forever.